Good morning, everybody. My Chinese is not very good. Later on, I will try maybe a little bit, but I think it's only going to be shishi. So my name is Jordi, and today I'm going to talk about why you should be learning by doing, and why you should be making very small, simple apps, and then learn Vision OS along the way. So I'm Jordi Bruin. I'm from Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and I'm an indie developer. I've been developing for about 4 or 5 years, and before that I was in design. And I've made about 30 apps over the last few years, and a lot of them are very small, which is why I've been able to make 30. And I think it's really nice to start with small things because it allows you to focus, and I think especially for Vision OS, when it's so new, it gives you a lot of opportunities. So these are the apps I make for iOS, macOS, and other platforms, but today I want to talk a little bit more about these, which are some of the apps I've released for the Vision OS. But before that, I want to go back to WWDC. So I was there in June last year when Apple introduced the Apple Vision Pro, went to see it, and even got a chance to try it there, which was very special. It was a 30-minute demo, and I was like, all right, wow, this is really mind-blowing, and I'm really like, where is this going to go? So then I got home, we got the simulator, I think a week later or something, and then I thought, okay, what can I make? And there was an app I made before called Navi, and I made that for iOS, which allowed you to do subtitles in FaceTime.
And you can also use it to translate incoming subtitles in your own language.
Mit ausländischen Freunden sprechen war nie so einfach.
Of als je partner een andere taal.
会用你客户的语言来完成商业交易。
Navi is available now for free. Get it up yet.
So it allowed you to do subtitles on FaceTime, but then when iOS 16 came out, unfortunately it broke. Apple removed the API, so I had to remove the app from sale, but I always liked the idea of creating like live translation. So when it was nominated for an Apple Design Award, I thought, okay, must be something special. Let me try to bring that to the Vision Pro. So the first demo I did was literally just take the speech recognition framework that's built into Vision OS, 5 lines of code, and I made the very first version of Navi. As you can see,
It's
it's very
helpful for
basic.
people who have trouble hearing what other people are saying, but it also works in a translation way. So if someone speaks a language you do not speak, you can see what they're saying in your own language.
So this is being said in Dutch. I don't think anyone here can read Dutch, except for Hidde maybe. But it was a very, very small idea.
Obviously, it's very early days.
A very small idea, but it worked. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the labs, I'm going to try this out, and it's going to be perfect, right? Easy. But then I found out that when you're having a conversation with someone, the microphones on the Vision Pro are aimed at the face of the wearer, so it doesn't really pick it up. So I had to do a lot of interesting things with connecting to a phone, and then the input of the microphone of the phone is used, and then that's being used as the translation engine, which made it a lot more complicated than I was initially expecting. And because it's such a new platform, you don't really know what you're going to run into. It's not like making a normal app. You really need to solve new problems, not just technical, but also implementation and also interaction with people and how they use it. Luckily, in the end, after a few months, I was able to make it work well.
Dat was heel mooi. We vlogen naar Barcelona en toen hebben we de trein gepakt naar het dorp. We zijn er 3 dagen geweest en we hebben vooral heel veel lekker gegeten. En we zijn naar een paar wijngaarden gegaan. En het was ook nog heel lekker weer, dus eigenlijk alles.
So that's basically live translation visible in the Vision Pro. So I thought maybe I'd give a little demo if anyone wants to see it. Yeah. Almost dropped my Vision Pro there. Let me just get this set up. So I've hard-coded it now to translate into Chinese, so hopefully that will work. Let's see. Just doing the setup. Oh, I don't know who Jade is. I accidentally go to Jade's MacBook. All right. Let's see. Good morning, everybody. Hopefully this will be translated to Chinese. I'm not sure if that's laughing because it's very bad or if it's really good, but as you can see, it's a nice addition because I can be talking in English and you can see it in Chinese. I think some people also have translated earpiece right now, but hopefully something like this can also be useful. And obviously it's very early and it can be improved, but I thought it was a nice demonstration of what you can do when technology like this comes into the real world. So it took me a few months to work on this, and then when the vision finally came out, I had a moment of, okay, I did this big thing, I tried to solve all these problems at the same time. Okay, what can I do now? How can I start small and like continue from here? What's the next step I should take? Because there's so many things when you work with Vision OS, so many things to learn about. There's windows, there's volumes, there's 3D concepts that you need to know about. Especially if you want to do more interesting, immersive things, you have to know about RealityKit and ARKit. And these are very big concepts that some people have been working on for years. So I wanted to focus on some of these things and like come up with small ways to learn them without spending months on one project. And how I normally do that for my iOS and macOS apps is I have this system called 222, where I basically make a first version in 2 hours. It's just a prototype, it's just a test for me if it works. Then I make a first version in 2 days for my friends. So it's very rough, it only does what it needs to do. And then I try to launch in 2 weeks. So it's really, is it usable? Is it feasible? Is it usable? And is it launchable? And that focus, I think, really helped me also with Vision OS, because once the hardware came out and I was able to try it more, I thought, okay, how can I come up with small Vision OS apps that will teach me all these little things along the way, and then every learning I can take along to the next project. So I want to talk about some of these things from the list that I learned by doing these projects, and I hope that I can inspire you a little bit to also work on small stuff yourself. So back when the iPhone 12 Pro came out, it came with a LiDAR scanner. And what I really wanted to do was to make an app that allows you to control your HomeKit devices just by looking around the room. This is basically what I wanted to make for Vision OS when it came out. So I made this is a fake demo that I made just with my phone, but I wanted to do this where I could just walk through my house. That TV stopped working, by the way. This one as well. If someone could fix that. Basically just look at the window, look at the lamp and tap to turn it off. And I had made a project with this with ARKit back in 2020, I think. But for anyone familiar with ARKit, if you want to save the space, you need to save a world map. It's all these little yellow dots you see here. It's quite complicated because you have to save that space and then load it back. But I was able to make like a simple demo that showed it working. I could click on that little ball and it worked. So in Vision OS, there's a similar concept where you have world anchors, which persist across launches. So you can basically scan your room once, and then anything you put there, any lamp, any other HomeKit device, it will stay there, even if you reset the windows. So the red one here, for example, stays in this exact same position, while the blue one might reset if the user goes somewhere else. So I thought, okay, I need to be using this stuff. I need to have it anchored precisely where it needs to be. But to do that, you need to know ARKit. I need to know a lot about things I did not know, like technologies I did not know about. So I thought, okay, how can I make this smaller again? What's the simplest version of a HomeKit control app for Vision OS? So it came down to this. Basically, a little window I put there in front of my lamp. I positioned it manually. If I restart the app, it would go away. But if I set it up once and I have my windows, it just works. So I can just tap on the lamp, I can change the brightness, or you can change the color. So this already allowed me to test, okay, what's this idea like? How will this work if all my lamps in my house would have this? So I was already able to solve a lot of the problems that I would have to solve for a full app just by making the simplest version. So the simplest version is just take your HomeKit devices, make windows. That's all. And a big button that toggles them on and off. So you don't have to already start with the big end goal. You can just start with the smallest version and then just test and learn so much about these new interactions with spatial computing. Which brings me to RealityKit. And RealityKit is, in my head, sort of the 3D environment that if you want to do anything fancy with 3D, you have to use RealityKit. I know there's exceptions and there's other things you can do, but to me I thought, okay, if I want to learn RealityKit, I need to do something like the app Blackbox, which is a very popular game for Vision OS. And I know the person who made this and I know how much work went into this, so it was very challenging for me to think, okay, how do I even start with something for RealityKit? What's the smallest thing I can make there? When you have to learn all these new words, shaders, systems, components, all these things I'd never heard about. And it was very hard to find good information about that as well. So I thought, okay, I can never do those things. They're too complicated. But then I thought, okay, maybe there's other people doing smaller stuff, and maybe they will mention it later in their talk, but I don't know if any of you saw this app called Plate Smash, which basically just allows you to take plates, which is made by Devon, who will speak later today, so ask him for questions on how he made it. But to me, this showed that you don't have to make a huge game. You can make something super small, which is fun, which will teach you a lot of the basics of these technologies. He keeps throwing. So later on, I was like, all right, maybe there's small stuff I can make there. But then I had another idea, which turned out was a way for me to learn about RealityKit and about ARKit, which was I wanted to make a web browser that was always in the same space. So you would walk around the house, but the browser would always be here. Turns out you cannot do that without ARKit, because you need to do head tracking, and as soon as you do head tracking, you have to do immersive, and if you do immersive, you have to do a lot of stuff I didn't know. So I thought, okay, let me just try to make the simplest version. I never released this. This was really just a try. So it would just allow me to put that window up at the top. And if I would walk around the house or the simulator, it would always stay there. It taught me like the basics, but then it also taught me that once I tried it on device, that windows just are not visible because the field of view, there's a certain limit to the field of view. So I already learned a lot just with this simple prototype. That was maybe 20 minutes of work, which taught me, okay, how can I place an anchor somewhere? How can I position something? And then I just thought, okay, let me just add a lot of controls at the bottom and let me just test this stuff out. So I made some controls that changed different numbers and different values in ARKit that I did not really understand. But by having those controls there, I gradually understood better how it worked. So instead of making this big 3D app to learn RealityKit and ARKit, I just made a web browser, which, yeah, is completely different and much closer to what I know. And if you try out RealityKit and ARKit, there's all these debug tools that you can get, which basically overlay the world with the data that the Vision Pro has tested. And this is an app called Magic Room, which I think made a really good demonstration of the fact that people wear an AR headset like this. For most people in the world, this is completely new. They don't know anything like this. For us now, it's maybe, oh, okay, yeah, you put on the headset, you can direct things around. It's completely magical. And so this app is called Magic Room. And basically what it does is it shows the debug interface. This is not super special, and it's not very hard to make the basic version. He iterated over time. But the response to this app has been phenomenal. People have been blown away that their vision has all this information about the space around them. We just think, oh, yeah, that's just a technical thing. But for normal people using AR and VR and all these kind of things for the first time, this is very special. So you don't even have to add new things. It's more like exposing the things that are already there and then move on from there and try to make it better from there. This is a game that came out last week. It's called AR Helicopters. And basically this was done by Jelmer, who just wanted to learn how to develop for Vision OS. And basically what he did, he takes a 3D helicopter model and links it up to his controller, and you can fly the helicopter around. It's super fun. You can go around the space, and it's basically like a remote control helicopter, but on your headset, which you can just bring around everywhere. And obviously you can make more things here. You could do battles or whatever, but just the basic flying around is already super nice. And to show how easy it is to make something like this, Apple has a list of USDZ files on their website, which are basically these 3D files which have animations. And one of them is a little plane. And this is the exact file that you can get for free now from Apple's website that you can just load into Reality Composer Pro, and you could just add to your project. And you could make this exact same app in a few hours just by making the basics of, I have a 3D component, let me just move it around. So you don't have to make a full game out of it, just moving something by itself is already fun. There's an app called Pocket Rocket, which actually launched today, and it's made by someone who always was super fascinated with rockets. So he made 3D models of big rockets over the last few years, which is fun when you watch it on your phone. But now on Vision Pro, it's very amazing because you can see the scale and you can see how big they are over time. You can see how much they grew from the space shuttle to the new SpaceX rockets. But his very first version, when he was just trying to learn Vision OS, was literally just this. So he sent me his first project from a few months ago, and it was just, he did not know anything about working with Vision OS. So he just took his models he had, placed them in volumes and windows, and then when you actually see them, then you can think, okay, how would I want to see this? Do I want to see both rockets? Do I want to move the rockets around? No, I actually want the rocket to be in space because that's where they are and that's going to be more impressive. So something like having that 360-degree space that the 360-degree view here, that really adds to the environment. So you take your rocket, you add a space environment, it's a much nicer experience already. So you don't have to go way beyond that. Another app is Television, which basically puts a television in your room. So this is just an AR television. You can change different models, and you can watch videos on it. The idea is not super special. The implementation is really polished. But take a 3D model of a TV, put a video frame in there, and you're learning yourself Reality Kit, you're learning yourself AR Kit, you're learning different interactions of how to move objects around. And the smallest version of this is just to go to something like TurboSquid. And as you can see, this TV is just available for free there. So you don't even have to buy for a little TV. You download the TV, and all you have to learn is to put a little video in there. And once you start working with 3D objects, it's also nice to make a simple app more special. So after the Vision Pro came out, there were a lot of apps that allowed you to see the battery usage, and you could see the time and the calendar. But what this app did is basically they made a little lava lamp that, depending on how much battery you have, it's different color, different shape, and then adds the time to it as well. So then what could also just be a little window becomes a 3D object that you can put in your space, and which allows you to learn more about something like Reality Kit or AR Kit. So what I was fascinated with when I was making Navi is that I was doing these controls between the iPhone and the Apple Vision Pro. So I was sending translations and messages back and forth. And I thought, okay, maybe there's more things I can make there. And one of the things I wanted to try was because the Apple Vision Pro does not expose the camera on the front. So I thought maybe I can use the camera from my iPhone. So this screen you see here was literally a copy of the Navi connection screen. I just changed the color from blue to gray, and it allows you to connect to your iPhone, and then you can see the feed from your iPhone. It's nothing special. This is all that the app is. One little view just shows your camera, but it allowed me to think, okay, what if we would have camera access? What kind of things could you then make? Maybe I can put this somewhere as a security camera. Maybe I can put one next to my baby, like the crib for my baby, and have a look at the baby while you're wearing your Vision Pro. And a few of these apps came out over the last month, which allowed you to connect different things. And this is one called Castaway, which allows you to play video games from, for example, your PlayStation and your Nintendo Switch directly on the Apple Vision Pro, because it allows you to connect a capture card to your macOS, and then it sends it over to the Vision Pro. And while I like that idea of like playing video games, what I really wanted to do was have more Mac screens, because right now Mac Virtual Display supports one screen, but the technology is pretty much the same. You take a video feed and you send it over to the Vision Pro. So it's very similar to the camera app I showed before. So together with two friends, Matthijs and Tom, we made this app called Split Screen. So we took a lot of the technology from the first prototype, from that camera thing, which was just a little test, took a few hours, ported that to the Mac. As you can see, a very similar connection screen, just a little graphic at the top. But now instead of having one screen connected to your Mac, we allow you to do a second one. And next week, 3, 4, 5. So we took the same code we had, made a new use case out of it, and learned a lot of new things along the way. Because obviously it's different when you send a video feed from your phone to your Vision Pro, or when you want to send a full desktop interface. But by adding on top of all these things I learned before, it made it much easier to do all these things. So the camera app was made in 2 days after the Vision Pro came out. It was the weekend when it came out. And this was made in 2 weeks as well. And some of these other projects were also small because we could take from things we built before, and we didn't have to start from scratch. For this weekend, Split Screen is 50% off if anyone has a Vision Pro. And if not, just come up to me later and I'll give it to you for free. That's also fine. So what's a small version of making something that connects your Vision Pro to your phone? And a problem that probably you have here as well is that the keyboard right now only supports English. Most of my communication is in English, but sometimes it's nice not to have to use the virtual keyboard. The TV stopped working again. So my friends made a connection between your iPhone and your Vision Pro, so you can use the keyboard from your Apple Vision from your iPhone to type on your Vision Pro. This is using the same technology, but instead of sending a video feed over, we just send data over from the text. So with one technology or one skill that you learn, you can make a lot of new different apps. So you don't always have to start over and make something completely new. It's, especially with a new platform like this, it's better to work on the things you already know and add on top of that than to completely start from scratch every time. Because I think maybe at this point there's 3,000 apps, maybe more. But a lot of apps are just not there yet. It's very early days. And so I make an app for transcription, and I thought, I need to bring the whole app to the Vision Pro. Then I thought, no, I don't need to do that. I need to make something small. Well, it's actually a coincidence. I walked around here yesterday, and I saw that this app is actually here yesterday, so I'm not sure if the creator of this app is in the room right now. It's an app called Dino, which allows you to talk in Chinese, and then you can just copy it from there. So the smallest version of a transcription app can already be valuable. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just solve small problems that you run into, and then other people will probably run into that as well. Another problem I ran into in the week after I got my Vision Pro is that I wanted to show off my persona. Maybe you saw that people were taking videos from the settings screen, and on the settings screen you have this little preview. But according to the developer videos, there was also an API that would allow you, if you use the camera, to get your persona. So I was able to make this little app that basically is just a preview of your persona. And I did not really know, okay, when you have video content, when you have interactive content, how does the UI need to look like? How does the interaction need to look like? And this was with the 1.0 personas, which were not as nice yet. And so it was a really nice way to demonstrate like the difference between the first version and the second version. But it just started as a little fun project. But it also allowed me to learn a lot about, okay, where is this technology going? What are these personas capable of? And again, it taught me a lot about like showing videos in Vision Pro, which is different than for normal apps. And one of the things it also taught me is like, okay, how should like stuff like ornaments work? Because these ornaments are the things at the bottom there. What should you put in there? What should you not put in there? So, for example, I wanted to show a little preview of the photos you took. And this is from the iMessage preview. So I would then just look at how does iMessage do that and just try to recreate it. And my first version was obviously not how it should look. But by just starting somewhere and just trying stuff, it allowed me to learn a lot along the way. Instead of making this big app, no, let me just make one small feature, a video player, and make some controls around that. And for example, here in my ornaments, and Hidde, the next talk, is going to talk a lot about how you should be designing, because you should not listen to me for design, you should listen to him. Because there's a lot of guidelines from Apple, for example, like you shouldn't have buttons in the ornaments, which is a mistake I made a lot at the start. But because now I've been making so many different apps and so many different small things, it's much easier now to know what's right and what's wrong. A lot of apps came out in the first few weeks that are basically wrapping websites in a nicer way. So there's not a lot of websites, some video players are not available. So this is Uno, for example, and that basically makes a nice version of YouTube for the Vision Pro. And I think this is also a really nice way to learn what the interaction should be. Because you can basically go to your favorite website and then think, how would I want this to work? So you don't have to make the whole website, you can just go to a website you make and then just make a nice native Vision OS interface for it. And learn the basics along the way. Make a nice picker, for example, make a nice scrub bar. Make a nice little WhatsApp viewer. Or for example, this app, Lens, made basically a complete web browser where you can specialize for each different website you go to. And so this taught them a lot of, they gave a lot of different tools, but then they can think, okay, how should a window look? How big should it be? What do people prefer? What options do we want? So this gave them it gave users a lot of options to try it out, and then from there you can make the perfect experience for one specific website. Another app that's also here, a lot of the sponsors I put in my slide, this is not sponsored. This is an app called Seasons, and what they basically do is they're a weather app, and they have this special thing where they take these immersive effects to show the weather. They do a lot more than that, but this is a good show of take a very basic concept of a weather app. There's thousands of weather apps. How can you make a weather app more special? And how can you make it in a way that's specifically for the Vision Pro more special? You really use the capabilities of the platform. So what would be the smallest version of making a weather app? Oh, I made this example app that just shows some weather from Amsterdam and Beijing. And even just this app, which is super basic, taught me a lot of things. So I'm able to click on a city, and then it shows a new window. Obviously not too hard, right? The problem is when I close the main window, and if I then open the app again, it will always go back to that new window I opened. So just this concept of window management, which is so different than on macOS, on iPadOS, and on iOS, you need to learn these things. And it's very easy to learn those things with small projects instead of when you try to build something very big. So the solution for this, for example, is to detect if the main window is open, and then if the main window is not open, then show a little button to open the main window again. So I close the main window, and now you see the little home button. So these small interactions, these are just things you're going to run into. And it's better to make 20 different sample projects, and then for each of those, solve one of those small problems, than to do it all in a big project. Speaking of windows, this concept of windows that you can just place anywhere, that the user can place anywhere, is also very interesting just from what kind of apps can you make now. This is an app called Spatial Noise by Charlie, who's also here. And it's basically a white noise app. So you can place different types of sound and you can position them in different places. Normally on an iOS or other platforms, you would have had to build a whole spatial engine. But now, because these windows are spatially placed by the user and Vision OS takes care of all that stuff yourself, you can now very easily, I'm not sure how easy it was in the end, Charlie, make a spatial audio app where the sound is really coming from different directions. So just this concept of windows that are different when you place them here compared to when you place them there is completely new, and we don't know anything about that because most people don't have a lot of experience with these kind of things. And I came across this app as well, which when you set up your new router in your house, there's bad spots in your house, right, where you cannot get good connection. So this app basically lets you do quality checks for your Wi-Fi router just by walking around and just by doing the test. And then it shows you where your connection is good or where it's bad. Whereas normally you would walk with your phone and then you would try it here and you would have to remember here it's quality A and here it's quality B. And so these are just windows. This is not some fancy immersive thing. It's just placing windows in different spots. And so one of the other benefits is that there's these new app icons we have on visionOS, which are 3D and which you can create like interesting elements with. And I thought it was just very fun. Every time I was making a new app, I would start with the icon because I wanted to just experiment with the icon. So this, for example, the icon for Spatial Cam. And you can see this little 3D depth thing where normally everything is a layer above. But what I actually ended up doing was putting part of the camera at the bottom and then just a little ring in the middle, and that would give that 3D effect. For split screen as well, we tried like different things. We just put, this was for the beta version, just putting our faces in there. But there's a lot of nice things you can do there with very simple shapes as well. You don't have to do anything fancy, but you can play with these 3 layers of depth that you have. So I think it's very fun to try different scenarios there instead of being focused on one specific app, which probably has one type of icon. Same one for Cozy, which is the HomeKit app. To make that depth come a little bit more, the background is just a plain gradient, but there's just these little circles behind the windows so that when you move around, the windows have a little bit more depth. So it's just fun to play around with that kind of stuff. I can skip this one. So when I was looking into hand tracking, I came across this app, which basically allows you to measure things by just placing things in the world. And because the Vision Pro has an understanding of reality, you can just place anchors and based on that measure stuff. So this is an example of a very simple solution to a very complicated problem by just using the available APIs. And something like this finger ruler, which shows you the distance between your fingers, it's actually very easy to make. I was trying to learn how to do hand tracking, and there's some really good sample code from Apple. And just having this, like just showing dots on my hands, then I saw, whoa, it detected behind devices as well. So just having a most simple version allowed me to think, okay, what would I want to make when I have hand tracking? What kind of things can you make with this? And there was a little sneak peek of what's coming later. So again, like what kind of things you should be making? So I think right now Apple has sort of built the foundation for this house called visionOS. They've built all the walls and we can walk freely around it. They're still working on it, so there's improvements coming. But for us right now, I don't think we should be making the microwaves and the flat screen TVs. No, I think we should be focusing on the small stuff that's just in our house already. We should be making the light switches, like the small stuff that's not there right now for spatial computing. And a way to do this is just to look around your own house and just think, okay, what kind of things here can be spatialized? Which kind of things do I interact with in my life that I can make digital? So basically, how can I add the Vision Pro to these things? And I think you should be making super small things and super simple things for Vision Pro that are only possible on Apple Vision Pro. So take care, like make use of the capabilities there. And I wanted to show you a bunch of use cases that I found or came up with myself. So everyone listens to music. Something that you see now is some apps that are like showing all your music from your Apple library, for example, around you. But something that's really special about the Vision Pro is that you can walk around. So you can do something like this, which can just be a window that you put on your wall that just shows an album, and this can just be an on-tap gesture. These used to be super difficult to make, but now you can just let the user place the window themselves on the wall they want to do. You can even let them choose the album themselves, but you can basically recreate this thing in Vision Pro in not a lot of work. If you look at a news app, for example, you can now make a complete news app for Apple Vision Pro where you see all the different news, you can go in depth, you see photos, or you can take more cues from the real world. So I'm not sure if this is the thing in China, but you can see like newspapers for the day. You could just make an Apple Vision Pro version that just takes an RSS feed or just shows the highlights from a specific website. And then someone can place that on their wall and they know every morning when I walk there, I can see the news. If you have a movie tracker or if you want to, if you watch a lot of movies, you can decide, okay, I'm going to make a full movie app that I can search for all actors, I can do everything. And well, then you end up with a project that looks like this, that has this many files. You can make that. It's probably going to take you a few months to do it well. And this is some sample code from a project that's available on GitHub as well. And it could look something like this. This could be a perfectly fine Vision Pro app. It's nice, but it doesn't really use the capabilities of the Vision Pro to its full extent. So what you could also make is something small. When you go to the cinema, there's always these posters of movies that are coming up. So why not just have a poster of a movie, and every hour it's a different movie, and you can walk up to it, and you can click on to start the trailer, and then the trailer displays. That's the only functionality of the app, but it would still be valuable and useful. You don't have to make a search, you don't have to have a database. All you need to do is show a list of videos, of movies, and learn some stuff about aspect ratios along the way. The app Seasons that we saw before, they had this whole app with the weather and the immersive effects, but they also have this little widget where you basically have a little plant in your house, a 3D model of a plant, and it shows that little weather. So you can just make a weather app that's only the weather for your city where you are right now, nothing else. You don't even have options and details, but it's basically like looking out the window. Is it raining today? Oh, yes, it's raining. Oh, let me look at my plan. Is it raining? Yes, it's raining. So that would teach you something like Reality Kit, would teach you a lot of different things to learn. But you can go even further than that. Then everyone has curtains in their house. And so this app, they basically allow you to put little photos around your house in little windows. But the idea is that in Vision Pro, you sometimes have light coming in and you want to block the light, so you just put a window there. So you don't even have to make an app. All you have to do is just allow people to place windows to block stuff around their life. So, and it's a very small, simple app, but it solves a problem. If you're in the Vision Pro and you're working and there's a bright light there, you just take a little blackout curtain, just put it exactly where you want it, and you learn a lot of stuff along the way as well. So I wanted to come back to my hand tracking app that I made before. So one of the other demo projects from Apple is that you can tap to like drop little blocks of Reality Kit blocks. So this is all sample projects, but I was just playing around with it again earlier this week, and it's actually really fun because you can just like shoot things with your fingers at people. And so I did not make a full game, but now I was thinking like, oh, this could just be something I could move on from, and like, why don't I have some targets? It would probably take me a day or something, and then I could make something that's actually fun to use as well. So I think by just trying stuff out, you'll get so many new ideas and so many new directions to go that I think it's very valuable just to try out more stuff. So yeah, like I said before, I think it's very important that you make a lot of small things that are only possible on Vision Pro, because right now, all of us here, we're the first people who are working with this stuff. So we are the first people that can like figure out where this platform can go. And I think if we're just trying to make stuff that's already possible on other platforms, we're not going to get all the potential out of it. So I hope that all of you can make small stuff and put it out into the world so that other people can also be inspired and learn what's possible. And hopefully we can all make some really nice things for this platform over the next few years. So thank you. Shishi.